Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're diving into something a little different. Why younger women can't help but notice this subtle emotional presence in older men. And no, it's not their silver hair, fancy cars, or life experience. It's something far more powerful and much less obvious. Most people completely miss it because it doesn't look like what you'd expect from attraction. It's quiet, it's steady, and it communicates more than words ever could. Think about it. How many times have you felt drawn to someone just because they get you without even trying? That's the kind of emotional depth we're talking about, and it's a quality that instantly sets older men apart from the crowd. By the end of this video, you'll understand the 5 key ways this emotional presence shows up, why it matters, and how it influences younger women in ways most people don't even realize. The thing is, emotional presence isn't flashy. It doesn't announce itself with grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It's quiet, subtle, and often invisible to anyone who isn't paying close attention. That's why so many younger women feel drawn to certain older men without fully understanding why. You're not alone if you've ever wondered why some men just feel different. Maybe they have a calm, reassuring energy, or maybe their attention feels deeper than usual. Either way, it creates a magnetic pull that's hard to ignore. The problem is, most people misread these signs because they're looking for the obvious. They expect someone who is emotionally mature to be perfect, polished, or overtly confident. But the truth is, emotional depth often comes with humility, patience, and an almost effortless calm. Psychologically speaking, emotional presence is about awareness, being fully present in the moment, noticing how others feel, and responding in ways that show understanding. Older men tend to have more experience navigating life's highs and lows, which allows them to remain steady in situations that might rattle others. They don't need to prove themselves because they've already seen enough of the world to know that emotional intelligence speaks louder than appearances. This presence is subtle, but for younger women, it's noticeable almost instinctively. They might not label it as emotional maturity or empathy, but they feel it in the way an older man listens, the way he responds, or the way he simply exists in a room without forcing attention. And when you recognize these patterns, it suddenly makes sense why certain older men stand out so clearly, even if they're not doing anything overtly impressive. So while most people chase surface-level traits, like humor, looks, or social status, the quiet confidence and deep presence of some older men resonates on a far deeper, almost subconscious level. And that's what we're going to break down in the next 5 points, the subtle behaviors and cues that younger women notice without even realizing it. Before we dive into the list of behaviors and cues, it's important to set the stage. First, not every older man exhibits all of these traits, and not every younger woman is drawn to them. Attraction is complex, and emotional presence is just one piece of a very large puzzle. What we're looking at here are patterns, common ways that emotional depth tends to show up, rather than rigid rules. Think of it like a radar. Some older men naturally emit this steady emotional signal, and many younger women subconsciously pick it up. It's not about perfection. It's about consistency, empathy, and subtle signals that communicate, "I'm present and I understand you." These signals are often so understated that they fly under the radar for those who are searching for more obvious markers, like wealth, humor, or social status. But those subtle cues are exactly what creates an emotional resonance that younger women feel almost immediately. Another important point, emotional presence isn't something that can be faked convincingly for long. It comes from life experience, self-awareness, and a genuine interest in connecting with others. You can see it in how someone reacts in small, everyday moments, how they respond when someone shares a problem, how they notice a tiny detail about you, or how they remain calm when chaos surrounds them. These are behaviors that communicate stability, patience, and understanding, and they stand out precisely because they're rare. Now, here's where it gets interesting. While every person is unique, there are 5 specific ways this emotional presence often manifests in older men, behaviors that younger women notice almost immediately, even if they can't put their finger on why. From the way they listen to the way they maintain calm consistency, these cues are like invisible threads that draw others in. So, with that context in mind, let's move on to the first point, the most fundamental aspect of emotional presence, and arguably the one that leaves the biggest impression on younger women. Once you start noticing it, you'll see it everywhere, not just in relationships, but in friendships, workplaces, and even casual encounters. And remember, the goal here isn't to generalize or stereotype, but to highlight patterns that are surprisingly common and impactful. By understanding these cues, you'll gain insight not only into why emotional presence matters, but also how it affects relationships, communication, and even attraction dynamics. Whether you're observing someone else or reflecting on your own behavior, these insights are a practical roadmap for recognizing emotional depth in action. Number 1, they really listen. And I don't mean the kind of listening where someone nods once in a while scrolling on their phone. I mean the type of listening that makes you feel seen, understood, and valued, the kind of attention that's rare in a world full of distractions. Imagine this scenario. You're talking about a small problem at work, something that feels minor, and instead of brushing it off or trying to immediately fix it, he pauses, leans in slightly, and asks thoughtful questions. He remembers tiny details you mentioned weeks ago and brings them up casually later. That's emotional presence in action. Younger women notice this instinctively because it signals emotional intelligence, stability, and genuine care, qualities that are often subtle but deeply attractive. Psychologically, this works on multiple levels. First, listening attentively triggers feelings of validation. Human beings crave recognition, and when someone takes the time to understand your perspective, it produces a subtle sense of connection and trust. Older men who have navigated more of life often naturally excel at this because they've learned the value of empathy, the patience to truly hear someone without rushing or dominating the conversation. Another layer is the emotional safety it provides. Younger women may unconsciously test for stability and reliability in a partner. A man who listens well, without judgment, demonstrates that he can handle emotions calmly, not just his own, but others too. This creates a sense of security, which is a core component of attraction. The presence of emotional safety often outweighs superficial traits like looks or wealth in the long term. It's also interesting how subtle this behavior can be. It's not about intense eye contact or dramatic gestures. Often, it's in the micro behaviors, leaning slightly forward, mirroring your tone, nodding with understanding, or waiting a beat before responding. These small cues signal attentiveness and presence without being overt. Younger women pick up on these subconscious signals and associate them with emotional depth, even if they can't articulate why they feel drawn. Here's a real-life mini-scenario. Imagine Sarah, 26, who recently started working with a client who's an older man in his 40s. He doesn't boast, he doesn't try to impress, but every time she speaks, he asks precise questions and seems genuinely curious about her perspective. She doesn't realize it at first, but after a few meetings, she notices she feels more energized and understood in his presence than with most peers. That's the subtle power of emotional listening at work. What to do if you notice it? Appreciate it, but also reflect on what it teaches about presence. You might start noticing it in others around you, friends, coworkers, or even yourself. Emotional listening is a skill as much as a trait, and older men who excel at it often make it seem effortless because it's rooted in genuine interest, not performance. This first point sets the foundation for everything else we'll cover: subtle behaviors that communicate emotional depth without saying a word. When someone listens this way, it's almost impossible not to feel a connection, and that's why younger women are drawn to it in a way that's both subconscious and undeniable. Number 2. They communicate through subtle physical and situational cues. This is one of those things that younger women notice almost immediately, even if they don't consciously register it. It's not flashy. It's the quiet confidence that comes from being comfortable in your own skin and aware of the space around you. Think about how some older men carry themselves. They don't feel the need to dominate a conversation or command attention. Instead, they move with ease, maintain relaxed posture, and often create a sense of calm wherever they go. Maybe they're sitting across from you at a cafe, and instead of fidgeting or checking their phone every few minutes, they're fully present, shoulders relaxed, body slightly leaning forward, eyes attentive. That physical stillness signals emotional steadiness, and it's noticed subconsciously. Situational cues play a big role too. Emotional presence isn't just about how they sit or gesture, it's about how they show up. For instance, when plans change unexpectedly, they remain composed rather than frustrated. When someone else is stressed or upset, they instinctively create space for calm conversation rather than adding chaos. These behaviors communicate that they're reliable and emotionally anchored, which is incredibly attractive to younger women who are often seeking security and stability in social interactions. A relatable example: Emma, 24, met Daniel, a man in his early 40s, at a networking event. While everyone else was rushing from conversation to conversation, Daniel stayed grounded in each interaction, responding thoughtfully, making subtle gestures like maintaining eye contact and nodding to acknowledge her points. Emma felt an immediate difference. She didn't know why, but he exuded a sense of calm control that was magnetic. She later realized it wasn't about charm or charisma. It was presence, the kind that feels safe and steady without effort. Psychologically, these cues work on a subconscious level. Human brains are wired to detect stability and threat. A person who moves confidently yet calmly signals safety, which makes others more likely to relax, open up, and connect. For younger women, this emotional vibe is often more powerful than anything someone could say. Words matter, but nonverbal presence is felt, not processed, and it creates an immediate sense of trust and attraction. Another subtle physical cue is how they manage attention. Older men with emotional presence often mirror your tone, match your pace of conversation, and make gestures that indicate attentiveness. For example, a small nod, a brief smile, or a tiny adjustment of seating to face you can communicate far more than overt compliments. These small, situational gestures accumulate over time, creating a feeling of being understood and valued. It's fascinating how younger women pick up on this naturally. They might describe it as, "He just feels different, I feel calm around him," or "He makes me feel seen." What they're responding to is the combination of physical steadiness and situational awareness, an emotional presence that is consistent, subtle, and deeply reassuring. In short, these cues are all about creating a safe, engaging, and calm space for connection. Older men who master this balance do it unconsciously, and that's why they stand out. Even in a crowded room, their presence is impossible to ignore. Number 3. They balance emotional depth with humor and relatability. Emotional presence doesn't mean being serious all the time. In fact, it's often the subtle combination of maturity and lightheartedness that draws younger women in. Older men who carry this presence know how to make someone feel comfortable without forcing it, creating a sense of familiarity that's hard to resist. Think about the people you naturally enjoy being around. Chances are, they can make you laugh in a relaxed way, not over-the-top comedy, but witty observations or shared jokes that show they're paying attention. Emotional presence shows itself here because it's not about showing off, it's about connecting. A joke, a small laugh, or a shared moment of amusement demonstrates social awareness and empathy, which signals emotional intelligence. Here's a mini scenario. Laura, 25, was chatting with Michael, an older man in his 40s. During a casual coffee, he noticed she was stressed about a work project and lightly joked about the absurdity of office culture. She laughed, felt seen, and instantly felt a deeper connection. The humor wasn't overbearing, it was carefully attuned to her mood, demonstrating both awareness and emotional presence. That's the kind of subtle balance younger women pick up on almost immediately. Psychologically, this mix of humor and depth works because it combines safety with relatability. People are drawn to those who make them feel comfortable, who can lighten the mood without minimizing their feelings. Older men with this emotional presence often have enough life experience to know how to read a room, gauge someone's emotional state, and respond in a way that feels both safe and enjoyable. Relatability also plays a big role. They don't overcomplicate themselves or try to appear perfect. Instead, they share small personal anecdotes, acknowledge minor flaws, or express vulnerability in controlled ways. This humanizes them and allows younger women to feel a sense of ease. It's the subtle, "I get you" energy that communicates connection without demanding attention. Even casual, Everyday interactions carry this dynamic. Walking side by side, chatting in a cafe, or sharing a quick joke over text, these small, familiar moments accumulate to create a perception of emotional presence. Younger women often describe this feeling as "he's easy to be around" or "I feel comfortable with him instantly," and that's precisely what's happening. The emotional cues are consistent, reliable, and reassuring. The key takeaway here is that humor and relatability don't dilute emotional depth, they enhance it. By combining lighthearted connection with attentive listening and calm presence, older men create a balanced emotional package that younger women find magnetic, even if they can't explain exactly why. Number 4. They show consistent effort and subtle intentionality. Emotional presence isn't just about big gestures, it's about the quiet, repeated actions that communicate care, thoughtfulness, and reliability over time. Older men with emotional depth naturally demonstrate this kind of behavior, and younger women notice, often subconsciously because it feels genuine and reassuring. Think about the little ways someone shows they're invested without overdoing it. Maybe he remembers something you mentioned a week ago and follows up casually, or he checks in after a stressful day without being prompted. These small, intentional actions are powerful because they communicate that he's paying attention, he values the connection, and he's willing to invest emotional energy consistently. Unlike flashy displays, these behaviors are subtle, but they accumulate over time, creating a profound sense of reliability and trust. Let's consider a scenario. Jenna, 27, was dating a man in his early 40s named Robert. He never made grand, showy gestures, but he consistently did small things that mattered. He remembered her favorite coffee order, asked about her weekend plans, and sent a thoughtful text just to check in. Jenna found herself drawn to him not because of charm or words, but because of this quiet, consistent presence. Over time, it built a sense of security that made her feel understood and cared for. Psychologically, this behavior signals emotional intelligence, patience, and self-awareness. It shows that he's capable of thinking beyond himself and considering how his actions impact others. For younger women, this translates into a feeling of stability and reliability, which can be incredibly attractive. It's a subtle form of communication. I see you, I hear you, and I value you, without saying it explicitly. Consistency is another key factor. Emotional presence is reinforced through repeated actions, not one-off moments. A single thoughtful act is nice, but repeated attentiveness over days, weeks, or months builds trust and emotional resonance. This is why younger women often feel a stronger connection to older men who exhibit these behaviors. They create a pattern of care that feels both intentional and effortless. Subtle intentionality also manifests in how older men manage shared experiences. They plan thoughtfully without being controlling, they arrive on time without drawing attention to it, and they create space for meaningful conversation without forcing it. These small but consistent actions communicate reliability and presence, which are incredibly powerful emotional cues. In essence, this point highlights that emotional depth is not just about presence in the moment, but sustained, thoughtful engagement over time. When younger women notice these patterns, it signals that they can trust, rely on, and connect deeply with someone who is emotionally mature. And this is a major reason why older men often stand out so distinctly. It's the cumulative effect of consistent, intentional, and subtle emotional signals. Number 5, they carry their emotional presence into the digital world. In today's world, connection isn't limited to face-to-face interactions. Older men who genuinely have emotional depth often extend the same attentiveness and subtle care into texts, DMs, and social media interactions. For example, a short, thoughtful message like checking in after a long day, sending a funny meme that reminded them of you, or responding with genuine interest instead of one-word replies can communicate emotional presence in a way that feels surprisingly personal. These small gestures show that they're thinking of you, noticing details, and valuing the connection, even when you're not physically together. Psychologically, younger women pick up on this because it signals consistency and consideration. It demonstrates that emotional presence isn't just a performance during in-person encounters, it's a genuine trait that carries over into daily life. Even tiny digital actions create a sense of intimacy, reassurance, and emotional security. In short, these modern cues may seem small, but they matter, perhaps more than ever. Younger women feel it instantly. It's not about constant messaging, it's about thoughtful engagement that shows you care and are emotionally present, even in the quiet spaces of digital communication. And there you have it. The 5 key ways emotional presence sets older men apart and captures the attention of younger women. From the way they truly listen, to their calm physical presence, balanced humor, consistent thoughtful effort, and even subtle digital gestures, all these cues add up to a powerful, magnetic emotional depth. If you've noticed these patterns in someone you know, it's not a coincidence. Emotional presence is real, and it speaks louder than words, status, or appearances. It creates trust, connection, and a sense of security that younger women intuitively recognize. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these behaviors have you noticed before, in someone you admire, a friend, or even in yourself? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I love reading them and discussing these insights with you. And of course, if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next deep dive into relationships, psychology, and emotional intelligence. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week with another fascinating video.